when it comes to a general election, people have a choice to make rather than comparing perhaps what their ideal government would be. They have a choice to make between two competing alternatives. Do you want to continue with a government that have a long-term plan to deliver the success the country needs, or do you want to take a risk with Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, who have set out, as far as I'm aware, no plans to do very much at all?
As you're the first government minister to come on Times Radio today, let me ask you about some of the stories that are hitting the news today. There's been this extraordinary letter from 600 lawyers calling for the British government to stop selling arms to Israel. Can I ask your reaction to that? It does seem like the government is coming under increasing pressure to make this decision.
Well, I know the Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary keep these matters under careful review. We have a very well-advanced arms control regime, and we will continue to apply that, making sure that we're fully compatible with international law. And the Prime Minister has been very clear about that.
And what about the polls that keep coming out? We did manage to speak to Matt Warman earlier in the show and ask him what he felt about this prospect of a 1997-style wipeout. You and I are lucky enough not to have to worry about being re-elected. But what is your view on the polls at the moment for the Conservative Party?
I would obviously prefer the polls to be better, but a poll is a snapshot in time. When it comes to a general election, people have a choice to make rather than comparing perhaps what their ideal government would be. They have a choice to make between two competing alternatives. Do you want to continue with a government that have a long-term plan to deliver the success the country needs, or do you want to take a risk with Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, who have set out, as far as I'm aware, no plans to do very much at all?
So I guess what I would say almost as a layman is, why doesn't the government trumpet our achievements more? The message coming from the Tory party, if you like, pushing back the target to 2035, is that somehow net zero and climate change is a sort of dirty word.
Well, I mean, it's a obviously complicated subject. There's a lot of different moving parts. We are extremely proud of our record, as your contributors over the last week have said. We're doing extremely well. I'm the first to accept there is an awful lot more still to do. But nevertheless, we have one of the best investment records in the world. We've got hundreds of billions more flowing in. And yeah, of course, we need to trumpet it and talk about it. And that's one of the reasons that you're having the Energy Week, I guess.
So why delay to 2035? Why not say we can meet 2030 because we're one of the most ambitious countries in the world?
Well, we haven't delayed anything until 2035. To just announce a target is easy. To actually put a plan in place to deliver it is much more difficult. It's taken about £300 billion worth of investment in clean energy transition that the UK have had over the last few years to get us up from 7% in 2010 of renewable power up to almost 50% now. And it will take hundreds of billions of pounds of more investment, most of it private sector investment, incentivized by our policies. So announcing a target is easy. That's the political simple part of it. The more difficult part is putting a detailed plan in place to deliver it, whilst make sure that we keep bills as low as possible and making sure that the lights stay on at the same time. And all of these things are important. We're committed to the plan. We think we can deliver it by 2035. We'll be one of the first countries in the world to do so if we can, and we're on track to meet that.
So the debate, I agree, is nuanced, but sometimes the government can send out mixed signals. For example, the granting of 100 oil and gas production licenses, but something that won't really have crossed a lot of people's minds. You've made it easier to buy carbon offset credits and given companies the opportunity to buy more, effectively allowing them, as it were, to pollute more and buy carbon credits to offset that pollution. Is that giving companies, setting them a high bar, or is it lowering the bar?
Well, let's deal with those points in turn. Firstly, in terms of oil and gas licenses, let's be very clear that we still have a need particularly for gas, for the next number of years. As we roll out renewables, our needs will decline over time, but we still need those supplies. We currently get less than 50% of our supplies from the North Sea, and that is going down as it becomes a depleted field. So the question facing us is, do we want to get those gas supplies from our own supplies in the North Sea, paying tax to the British Exchequer, supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs, or do we import it from unstable parts of the world? And to me, the answer to that is very clear, that we should get as much as we can during the transition from our own resources. Apart from anything else, it's much more carbon less intensive than it would be to import it. In terms of credits, of course, you have to make sure that the credits are robust and are compatible with green finance obligations, and we will do so.
Oh, good. Okay. A quick emergency break stop there. Giving this interview a slightly chaotic feel, I'm going to go back to energy because I've had a text in from James in Berkshire who is very anxious to ask you one particularly techie, nerdy question. I think he should have the right to ask it, which is the biggest issue with clean energy is the electricity price is tethered to the gas price. He says that is absurd. What's he on about, Martin?
He's on about something called price rebalancing, and if you give me a minute to explain this, so it is. He's right about the issue. It is traditionally in the UK, as we've rolled out support for renewables, as we've invested in something like price guarantees and support to poorer households, etc. Insulation costs. These have traditionally been loaded onto electricity bills in the UK. What we need to do is over time gradually move those onto gas bills because the electricity grid is now much cleaner and decarbonised than it was when these policies were introduced. This is called price rebalancing. It will need to happen over a number of years. We'll be issuing a consultation later in the year. But in essence, your correspondent is right. It's something that we need to do. But as you can imagine, this is not easy to do politically.
Well, there you go, James. You've been endorsed by a government minister, and there's a consultation paper coming out later in the year for you to respond to in more detail than simply texting this programme, much as we love you texting the programme. Lord Callahan, Minister for Energy and Efficiency and Green Finance, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you to all my guests on Energy Week this week. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you about all of this. The government has committed to installing 600,000 electric heat pumps a year by 2028 to replace gas boilers. There were 70,000 installed in 2022. The 600,000 target is significantly off track. So that was something I didn't get a chance to talk to Martin Callahan about. Now, coming up, you're going to hear from Bassem Youssef, the Egyptian-American satirist. He'll be telling me about his tour, The Middle Beast, and his thoughts on the Israel-Gaza war. This is Ed Vasey on Times Radio in association with Abercrombie & Kent. Make